there. Hello and welcome to Finding Wendy, my journey to wellness. And this is actually episode 9. I can't believe it. Oh my God. Oh my God. So this week we're going to dive into something a little different. And not only are we going to talk about nutrition, but we're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about physical exercise and all those great things that go together with just making you better and healthier and happier. And so for today's episode, I'm very happy to be joined by Philip Pape, all the way from Connecticut. And so he's just going to give a brief introduction about himself, and let's jump right in. Who are you? What are you doing? And thank you so much for coming to my podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Wendy. I'm an honored to be on episode 9. I mean, that's amazing. I remember starting my show. I'm at like 300 something episodes, and before long you'll be there. My name is Philip Pape. I'm host of the Wits and Weights podcast, and we've had the privilege of getting more and more eyes and ears over the years because our focus is on evidence-based nutrition. And really where I start from there is skepticism of things. And I know fasting and dieting and all of those definitely have a lot of misinformation in the industry. And I struggled with that for years, just like you did, where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know if it was right for me. And then around 2019 going into 2020, the pandemic era, we'll call it, is when I started to buckle down and experiment. I didn't necessarily still know what to do. I was still doing, say, low carb diets or this kind of, CrossFit or whatever was the flavor of the day. And it was at that point that I said, let me do one thing at a time. Let me try this. And eventually came around to a good mix for me of strength training, some flexible dieting, and an engineering-based approach, because my background is as an engineer, an engineering-based approach to creating a system that works for me. And that's what I love to help people with. So I started the podcast in 2021, and that then led to coaching later on. I didn't start as a coach. It led to coaching as people were like, interesting perspective. Sounds like this is something different that I haven't tried before, and it's very personalized. So can you help me? And it led to, sure, let me give it a shot. Became a nutrition coach in 2021 and have been doing that ever since. I'll leave it there and we'll dive in.
Well,
with your questions.
and the interesting thing is that the important thing is, and for many, many people to know, is not one size fits all. That people try different things, and everybody in my whole circle knows I have tried everything. I basically have, and as my listeners know, I have tried every diet on the planet. I have my weight has ballooned up and down. I was a gym rat at one point. I was not a gym rat at one point. The pandemic shut it down a lot of my activities during that gym rat era for a lot of people, and to get back on track, like I call it the COVID kilos, to get back on track. But I just wanted to jump in first about fasting as a tool for health and fitness. Now, you mentioned that you also do the nutritional part, so strategic part of fasting, and that what is your experience of it being an effective tool for improving the metabolic health, your insulin sensitivity and body composition?
Yeah, I like the use of the word tool here because just so everybody knows, full disclosure, my background was I was an IFer. I did intermittent fasting for probably a decade throughout my 30s.
Wow, great.
Yeah,
That's great. That's a long time.
It's a long time. So I have experience that I can speak to. And I think I originally came across it with Lean Gains, the Lean Gains protocol back in the day, which was basically geared toward, meatheads who wanted to get lean and shredded and build muscle while also eating in a way that supported that. And there's a lot of things that I would, if I went back and did that protocol again, I would change some things. But I did that for a long time and my body was used to it. It kept me in a routine. I was able to train and build muscle, or I was able to train okay. I wasn't building muscle, but that's a different situation, not having to do with fasting. And I see the benefits of it as a tool. The biggest benefit, I think, and I think this is borne out by the evidence, is for many people, it gives you a sense of boundary and routine, a sense of structure that is hard to get with almost any other dietary approach. Pretty much every dietary approach requires some level of restriction or boundary or strictness to it of some kind, right? Even fasting does. Like, you don't eat between this time and this time. That's your restriction. So as a tool for adherence, it's fantastic. Now, as a tool for like metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, body composition, I like to split fasting into two areas. On one hand, we have body composition, weight loss, dietary control, maybe even metabolism. And on the other hand, we have the longevity and aging and health side, kind of the insulin sensitivity crosses both. We can get to that. But the longevity side of it, right? So I focus more on the first than the last. And the reason I do, Wendy, is because a lot of people coming to me, they're struggling. They've lost hope. They've tried all the things. Maybe they're 300 plus pounds. I've got some clients I'm working with that are, 350 pounds right now. And they're just looking for something new. And they're not doing a lot of the things that are the basics, the big rocks, like in my opinion, strength training, just being active and walking around, getting off your butt, and eating protein, and just simple things, right? Just simple things, let alone trying to add fasting or something else into the mix. That's where I start from. However, when we find out that their lifestyle is really well aligned with having a fasting window, especially because the calories might be a little tighter as they're trying to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, go for it. I think it's an awesome tool for that. I really do. I do, on the longevity and the health side, have seen evidence that fasting can improve insulin sensitivity, for sure. My caveat to that is that body composition and muscle mass also do that. And they, I believe, do it to a much greater magnitude. So you can have both. Go for it. I would say it depends on your priorities, and it depends on what you're capable of sticking with and is sustainable for you. That's my thought on that.
Well, that's great. And then, of course, with the fasting for fat loss versus muscle maintenance, and that one of the concerns that people often have is that they're losing muscle while they're fasting. That's a myth, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can expand on that. You only lose muscle because you're in a calorie deficit and you're not training and eating enough protein. So in other words, whether you're on GLP-1, Ozempic, and Wegovy weight loss drugs, whether you're just in a calorie deficit via fasting or not fasting, you're going to lose muscle. And if you're in a deficit, if you're not maintaining the muscle, in other words, fasting has nothing to do with it. Right. Fasting is just a feeding window. It's really all it is.
Yeah.
So that's true. That is a myth.
Yeah. So then, so fasting for different body types and goals. And do you believe that fasting is sustainable for everybody?
You'd have to ask everybody, Wendy.
Yes.
But I will tell you.
Hey,
I will tell you.
Do you want to be fasting?
Mr. Everybody. No. So with my clients, if I were to break it into a percentage, I'd say 5 to 10% of them use fasting. So it's not nothing. Mm-hmm. It may not be as high as somebody's thinking listening to this, but also my clients' goals are body composition, aesthetics, combined with health. If your goal is more on the longevity and health side, not as much on the aesthetics and body composition, there's probably more people that fast in that case. So no, it's not suitable for everyone. I don't do it anymore. And the reason I don't do it anymore is I have to eat a lot more calories. I'm building muscle and I work out really early. So the only time I would fast is through the night, right? Like most people, into the late morning, and then I wouldn't be eating to support my training. Now, you can train fasted. We can get into that topic, and you can have great results, especially if you're adapted to it. Generally, I've seen people perform and get more results when they are training fed, in which case you can then shift your training later in the day when you're eating. That's one easy solution.
So that's an interesting point, because in the book that I just finished reading of Jen Stevens, a New York Times bestseller book of Jen Stevens, and I'll just hold it up for now, Fast, Feast, and Repeat. She talks about working out while you're fasting. And so again, there's this so much information out there in this world, and you just don't know, oh, look over there. Like it's a deer in headlights. It's like, oh, look over there. I'm going to try that. Oh, look over there. I'm going to try that. Oh, I'm not going to do that because I heard that and that doesn't work. And it's like you're like, what do you do? And I always say you do what works for you is basically the only way that you can do it. If you I'm a trained musician. I have had many, many teachers over my career, and one teacher I liked, another teacher I didn't like. Another teacher, I took a little bit of what he said or she said. I took a little bit of what he said or she said, and then I put it together and made Wendy the horn player. So similar sort of situation here when you're talking about your wellness journey, that you are, taking bits and pieces from information around the world and books and podcasts. My God, the podcast world is just blowing my mind. And anyway, I'm ranting because that's what happens. I get a bit of verbal diarrhea. I'm so sorry.
No. I can totally relate and empathize with that. I think it's great. I mean, that's why people love you, and your show is going to grow because they love the personality. When it comes to, I like what you said about your own personal experience, because one of your recent guests used the phrase N equals 1, which, for anybody familiar with sample size, N is the sample size in a study. So N equals 1 is a sample of 1, which is you. And that is our best evidence by far. You start with a baseline or an assumption, you bring it into your world and you test it. And if it doesn't work, you test something else until you get the thing. Now, that can be frustrating, Wendy, because people might spend 20 years trying things out. So hopefully when I get a hold of somebody as a client, I can put them in the ballpark and then say, okay, let's try this and let's collect the right data and track and measure. Let's track your biofeedback, your energy, your recovery. How sore are you after you lift? Are you able to sleep? Your sex drive, like your digestion, all of those things. And if they're trending in the wrong direction and you think it has to do with how you're eating around your training or the fact that you can't stick to your calories because you're not fasting, let's try fasting. You know what I mean? So it's exactly that. It's if you are already fasting, I'm not going to tell you immediately to stop either if it's working for you, but let's experiment at some point and compare, A to B and see how you feel.
And that's, it's an interesting thing that I just thought of because, as a bariatric patient, when I first started the bariatric journey, we got a year's worth of training in learning how to eat because you're, learning all about foods, learning all about proteins, what does your body need after you've had the bariatric surgery, and like. Basically, with fasting, it reminded me basically of the very first 6 months of my bariatric journey because I could only eat very, very, very little bits of food at a time, and so I was basically fasting anyway because it was just so little food coming into my body. But the important part is that the point I wanted to make is that you and I are basically professional, become professionals in not only healthcare, but also in nutrition. Like I know what you should and shouldn't eat after having this 40 or 50-year journey, and especially this last 6 years with the bariatric journey. I know what you should or should not eat. Most people know what they should or should not eat, but still I come across people that don't really get it or don't really realize how important certain things are, like make sure you get in your protein. It's like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm going to eat protein. Yeah, but what kind of protein? And that whole conversation about you have 100 calories of jelly beans or empty calories, and then you have 100 calories of carrots, or you have 100 calories of broccoli, or you have 100 calories of, I don't know, strawberries. They're a complete different kind of, oh, that's my dog, sorry. They're completely different kind of your body reacts or uses what's in these food items completely differently. So let's continue on about this. I wanted to talk about how to build a sustainable physique. So in your experience, what are the 3 most crucial steps in building a physique that is both sustainable and enjoyable? Because I have to be honest with you, I actually hate the gym. I actually don't like it. I would love to be able to just go for a long walk, but because of my disability, and I still can't walk very well, I'm in a scooter, but getting outside is great. A gym, I'm not really, interested in building muscles and whatever, but I know I need to do it. So what would you suggest that would be great for a starting point? Because, and this is a very, very important word, habit forming. that it's not a temporary thing. It's just as habitual as you brushing your teeth every day and taking a shower and going to bed, and that is a habit. Taking the dog for a walk is a habit. How can you make your building the physique and getting something both sustainable and enjoyable to your lifestyle?
It's a loaded question. So I'm gonna mix up my answer into a little bit of the practical and a little bit of the mindset piece. So when you mention something being enjoyable, I think that is the key to consistency and adherence, and it applies to everything. You're training. If you hate to go to the gym, it's not the right approach for you. Most likely, there's caveats, Wendy. But one caveat is maybe something is hard, just like playing an instrument, as you know, and there is a little bit of that momentum that you want to overcome, but you want to get the result from it to kind of build that motivation. If you've gone to the gym, you hated it, and it didn't really do the thing for you wanted, then of course that's going to prevent you from going in. It's like James Clear Atomic Habits, and people talk about it a million times, but it's removing friction and adding rewards so that the thing is almost effortless and your brain gets wired to just want the thing. Like I was joking with my daughters last night. If we're going to Washington, D.C. in a few weeks, and I'm not going to train that week, and I'll tell you by the time I'm done.
Sorry, can you repeat that? You're going where?
Washington, D.C. I know, it's just for vacation.
You said it so fast. I'm like, what?
Oh, sorry. I'm talking quickly. We're going on a family vacation, and I won't train for a week. And I tell you, when I get back, my body is going to be itching to train because it misses it. And that's kind of where you want to be with any habit. And so when I think of strength training specifically, this segues into, I guess you asked for 3 things, but the second thing is to prioritize strength training, because I do believe that strength and muscle mass, especially as we age, both of those things, they're independent but overlap, are so critical for function, for, getting off the chair, for having metabolically healthy tissue, because muscle is the biggest sink for glucose. And so the biggest factor in being more insulin sensitivity is how much muscle mass you have. I mean, it is that important. It's so important. It lets you eat more food. It lets you be more active, on and on and on. And it supports bone density, right? It supports so many things. And so you got to combine the drive to do that, because it's so important for your life, so that you're moving in your 90s and not stuck in a nursing home or worse, and you have health span, not just lifespan. But then you also have to have a way that gets you excited about it, right? That gets you excited about it.
It definitely, and that is something that I'm finding myself, and I've also been discovering more with this whole IF journey that I've been on. And for people that don't know me or did not know, I've only been IFing for 3 weeks, and so I'm really a rookie at this. But what I have noticed is that sort of, Wendy, you can go back to the gym now. It's not so bad anymore. The gym that I have here in Toronto, I'm a member of Planet Fitness, and the problem with the Planet Fitness is that it's very small and it's always packed. And it's just, I just like to be alone and be in my space, and I can't in this gym because it's so packed with people. And but that's my own thing. I mean, that's basically the reason why I don't like to go. I like to do the workouts. I'm fine with the workouts, but I just don't like that there's so many people there. Not that I'm afraid of getting sick or something like that, but I just think I live in downtown Toronto. There's a city of 10 million people, and I am looking out at about 100 apartment buildings. I'm in concrete heaven here, or concrete hell, either way. And it's just like, oh, there's more people at the gym, more people here, more people there. It's just kind of overwhelming. But the thing is, I was going to say, is that going back to the gym, something that you strike a balance between finding your fitness goals and finding the time to do it. And then just realizing, like, the hardest thing about going to the gym is going. That's it. Once you're at the gym, easy peasy. You work out is what you do.
Yeah, and there's lots of ways to reduce the friction. I mean, gym intimidation and gym logistics are a big problem for a lot of people. And honestly, one of the, I'll call it easiest, but not easy hacks to that is to have a home gym, is to have your own home gym. And you don't need much space to have a barbell, a rack, and some plates and get, a great workout. But, lots of things like putting it first in your schedule and doing it in the morning, like preparing your gym bag ahead of time, all the little ways that you can reduce your future self from making the excuse, right? Because once you're there, you're going to make the excuse. So, and then you're like, hands up. So
Yeah,
you asked for three things. That's two, and then I guess the third is just for building a great physique is knowing that less is more sometimes, that you need to recover. You need to have the balance between all the things, meaning you have to sleep a lot. You have to manage your stress levels. You have to eat in a way that supports your training. And that means, yes, maybe carbs. There's lots of myth busting we could do in the food world when it comes to that. But once you are training, you're getting results, you're feeling strong, you're building muscle, then you want to eat to support it and sleep to support it. It's like an upward spiral all the way.
yeah. Okay, that's great. So let's just move on to another section here about breaking through plateaus. So can you explain the science between strength and fat loss plateaus? How do they happen, and what is the key strategies to break through them?
Oh, you want to cover both? So strength and then fat loss, right? Two different things. Okay.
Yeah.
Strength plateaus, meaning you're going to the gym, you're doing your bench presses, and every time you go, you can't break through, right? The science behind that, and I guess it is going to be similar for fat loss, is you're not giving yourself the resources you need to break through. So from a strength perspective, that's what we call progressive overload, which is every time you go to the gym, you want to add a little bit of something, either some weight, some reps, and if you can't, like quote unquote, can't do it, you either are not resting long enough, you're not sleeping and eating enough, or you're trying to go up too high. So that's from a strength base, it's kind of easy actually. That's how we get through strength plateaus. Fat loss plateaus are the ones that probably everybody, when they listen to your show, they're wondering, I'm trying to lose weight. I've cut my calories. My weight on the scale has stopped moving, and I feel like I have to keep cutting my calories and do more cardio, whatever, and it's just not working. I give up. Is that what you're asking for? Right? That's the plateau.
Well, I went the IF direction, the intermittent fasting. So I am no longer stuck on a plateau. But then there are other ways, perhaps, that you have also shared with your clients.
Yeah, and I would say again for the listener, just politely challenge you, Wendy, in that people can fast and still not lose weight if they're eating too much, right? If they're eating too much in that window.
That's right. You can't just eat anything.
Yeah, you eat anything or the amounts, and different people have different hunger signals as well. And when you haven't gone through, the surgery like you have, most people can eat a lot more, and so therefore you're overeating sometimes. But a plateau is just data telling you that something has changed. If your consistency has been there, something has changed in your environment, your body, something. So I'm going to assume, Wendy, you know roughly how much you're eating. You've been consistent. Ideally, you're tracking something. I do track calories and macros because I just like the amount of data and certainty I have with that.
I do track calories and macros as well. I'm at about between 1,200 and 1,400 calories a day.
Yeah, so let's say you're doing that, and you know that gets you in a 500 calorie deficit a day, which is a pound a week roughly. And all of a sudden you plateau. Well, if it's early in the plateau, it could just be that you've gone through some initial water weight, and now you're kind of leveling off before it continues. Give it some time, be patient. If you're in a true plateau, there's something called metabolic adaptation. Our metabolisms adapt, and our metabolic rate drops when we diet for two reasons. One, because we're actually losing weight. Hopefully, we're losing weight. And then two, because our hormones downregulate all of our cellular processes, and we just burn fewer calories. And so you have to, by being aware of that, you're able to follow it with your diet. Hopefully not so restrictive that it's just the diet's miserable and it sucks, but enough that you have the knowledge to know that you have to change your calories. If not, Wendy, the only alternative is a little bit more movement, a little bit more sleep, less alcohol. There's other little levers that might help you out if you're not doing those already.
Yeah. And it's my God, my brain keeps on going one direction and then the other direction. I was just going to mention the very famous study done on people that participated in the Biggest Loser show. So the Biggest Loser is a great example of what does and what doesn't work. So I was a fan. I was a huge Biggest Loser fan at the time when it came out, and I bought it, and I wore the T-shirt even, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to work like crazy at the gym and watch my calories and see the weight go down. And then what happens to all of these Biggest Loser candidates, like 99.9% of them, the moment they stopped the show, they started regaining weight. So then they had to reduce their calorie intake even more and started gaining weight, and to the point where they were if you were compared a Biggest Loser candidate with a regular person and both of them were eating around the same amount of calories, the person that's normal weight as opposed to the person who has participated in the Biggest Loser gains weight.
Yes.
So that's the metabolic rate. That is like the hormone, the insulin, is very, very important. It's something that has to be addressed.
Yeah, and there's also cortisol and thyroid and your leptin and ghrelin, which are hunger and appetite. All of those signals get suppressed in some way or ramped up if your brain is trying to tell you to eat more. That's basically what is happening. And the Biggest Loser is a great example of people who lost a ton of muscle mass. That is the key thing. I use the phrase fat loss, not weight loss, because I don't just want you to lose weight. I want you to lose fat and hold on to your muscle. Biggest Loser, they lost a ton of weight and muscle. And so when they gained the weight back, it was all fat. And that is why their metabolic rate was so much lower.
Yes. So, how can someone stay motivated when they feel stuck in their progress, whether it's strength or body composition or weight loss?
Yeah, there's a few things that come to mind. I mean, there's one thing is to be focused on the process and not the outcome, because first of all, you're never going to be perfect day to day, but you're also not going to get that result anytime soon if that's all you're focused on. Like if you need to lose 20 pounds, let alone 100, and that's all you think about, you're not going to get there because that's a long time from now. So focus on the process. Like, did I go to the gym today and add 5 pounds to my squat? Did I hit my protein today? Did I take my walk after lunch? And you might not get them all, but you try your best. And if you fail, you do it again the next day. You don't, hold yourself to a standard of perfection. That's one. The other thing I really like that I use a lot now, Wendy, is periodization, meaning you don't just try to do everything in one straight linear shot. Mix it up and align it with your life, with your seasons, with your vacations. Don't just do fat loss for months on end. Pick a short period to do it and then get out for a while, maybe spend some time building muscle. It makes it more fun, do different strength training programs. Even your dieting can kind of shift with that, as long as you have the numbers to give you the confidence you know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're going to talk now about resilience in fitness and nutrition. You talked a lot about resilience in fitness, and how do you build mental resilience to overcome challenges and setbacks in nutrition and fitness?
I'm going to go with growth mindset here, right? We've heard of what's her name, Angela Duckworth, or am I giving the wrong? Who did grit? Not that somebody did grit and somebody did fixed versus growth mindset. Help me out here, Wendy. I forget which one.
I don't know. Maybe it's an age thing. I remember I'm a senior citizen here.
Yeah, exactly. So I think growth mindset is the idea that we can do anything. And it sounds trite, but it's very powerful. I think it was also, I'm going back to James Clear, Atomic Habits. He said, don't try to figure out how to do something or what to do and then become a person. Figure out that you say that you are that person, and what would that person do, right?
Yes.
And very powerful reframing, self-identity, self-talk, all that stuff from positive psychology. And having a growth mindset means that everything you do is just an opportunity to learn. There's no real such thing as failure. There's just data and information. It's very powerful. Now, how do we take that up a notch? Doing hard things and just committing to doing one hard thing this week is also a way to build resilience, in my opinion. Hard is relative. So I don't mean go out there and deadlift 405 pounds. I mean, go to the gym once and try one movement. That could be hard for you. Go out for a walk for 10 minutes after lunch if normally you sit around and doom scroll on social or watch the politics going on today. I mentioned before. Choose something hard, and when you do the hard thing and accomplish it, man, does that build so much resilience. I mean, that is like psychology 101 right there.
It's great, and it goes back to my own training as a professional musician. And I would say the people that are trying the most difficult things or going to try the most difficult things usually are surprised at themselves that they can do it, first of all, and that their journey to overcome something that's really, really hard. Like I'm the type of person that, rip off the Band-Aid. I'm the rip off the Band-Aid kind of person. If you tell me I need to jump out of a plane, I'll jump out of a plane. But the thing I was going to mention is that this book that I recently ordered on Amazon, and I have to read it, Atomic Habits. You know, have you heard the book from James Clear?
Yeah, I just
Atomic
mentioned it
Habits.
twice. And
Oh my God! See
yeah.
my brain. That's
know
my
what? When
that's my senior citizen
okay.
brain. Or you're speaking so fast I can't process it.
Let's go with the fast. I speak so fast that it just flies by like light speed.
Yeah.
I do that too as a host. I kind of like I'm thinking about other things.
I'm sorry, because it's like, you know, I'm processing what you're saying and I'm reading multiple screens here and I think, oh my God, what is he talking about? So,
you can just edit that part out.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. It's just, I'm human, right?
Squirrel. That's right.
Right. Squirrel, you know, so you get distracted. What was I saying? Yeah. So habit forming, but trying difficult things. I can remember for myself, one of the most difficult things in my career was I was playing with an ensemble in Amsterdam, and I was told that I had to play first horn with an ensemble and play the Schoenberg Chamber Symphony. Any musicians listening to this, they know this is one of the most difficult pieces in the horn repertoire to get to do. And it took me a year of practicing to learn how to play it. And it was dedication. It was put on the horse blinders, take one bar at a time every single day. And at the end of the year, I could play it confidently live on a live recording on the radio. But with this bariatric surgery, same sort of thing. I'm going to do it. They're going to take out 80% of my stomach, but damn it, I'm going to do it. So when you commit to something that feels really hard or tough or like, oh my God, I can't do that. No, it's too overwhelming. Just take baby steps is what I've done all my life. You know, start at the bottom of the mountain. Don't go right to the top, or don't expect, oh, I've done it this long and this is only the result, so it's not working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and one of the places where I see this physically manifested, since I know we want to sometimes bring it back to like physical exercise and training, is lifting heavy weights. And you could be I've had clients that are 65, 70, 75 when they get started lifting weights, and they're doing squats and deadlifts and bench presses. You know, they might have to work up to it. But once you start to progress after a few weeks, I hear comments like, oh, I feel muscles I never knew were there. I'm using things, my brain is telling my body to do stuff it hasn't done in a long time. You know, I feel like I could actually, you know, stand up with a straighter posture. And these are from doing something hard to your body that's causing it to change. It's the path of most resistance, not least, when it comes to strength training.
Yeah. And it, again, going back to finding the right teacher or finding a coach that's going to do this. That's why I love the Olympics so much. And I watch these fantastic athletes who have been coached by the best coaches in the world to be able to accomplish what they accomplish. It takes a lot of practice, but it also takes a great coach. So my point being, when I'm at the gym, because I've had coaching, I watch people working out and I'm like, you're doing that all wrong, dude. It's like, why are you doing it? Like when I see people with this machine up and down, that they're going really, really fast up and down like this. And I'm like, well, there's no resistance. Why are you doing that? Obviously, this person has not had a coach or, I call it the University of YouTube or the University of Google. It's all there, you know, but if you have the money, hire a coach like you. So let's go to debunking myths and misconceptions. Sometimes I can't talk. What's the most persistent myth you've encountered in the fitness and nutrition world, and why is it misleading?
On the nutrition side, I mean, there's a few that are up there, like carbs will make you fat. You know, the carb insulin model, and then more generically that any particular food is bad for you, or that there's clean and bad foods. And, you know, even what you mentioned before about jelly beans versus strawberries, that is true, right? Like if you eat just jelly beans, you're not going to be full. You're going to have just a bunch of sugar. You're not going to feel great. But the way I like to approach it is not, here's what not to eat. I like to say, let's figure out our goals and eat the things that support the goals. If you got a little extra room in there and there's something you really love and is non-negotiable, glass of wine, chocolate, ice cream, pizza, donut, include it in there, plant it in there, and shift from no control and lots of chaos and lots of overconsumption to some structure that prioritizes the protein and the fiber and the vegetables, fruits, and so on, and then still include some of your indulgences in there. And in that context, the jelly beans might not be bad. in that context, right?
For sure, for sure. Yesterday during my fasting window, I had a butter tart, and I thought, oh my God, I ruined it. I still have diet brain, so I had a butter tart, and then this morning I went on the scale, no effect. It was fine. It was not the end of the world. Right now I'm having a little snack because it's my window, and I'm having some grapes. And, those are my little green jelly beans, so to speak. And they're healthy, they're sweet, they're delicious, and they sure as heck have a lot more flavor and are better and nutritionally for you than a handful of jelly beans. And,
yes. And you're using the data that tells you that, not because someone said they're good or bad. I think that's the key.
Research, do your research. Do your homework, do your homework. So I don't want to jump too much here. I lost my train of thought. Consistency and lifting heavy, if you want to jump into that part of our questions here. Consistency is a major issue for people to try to improve their fitness. How do you help clients stay consistent in their diet and exercise routines?
I think we alluded to some of that with regards to process and scheduling in and prioritizing, but it really is what's the most important thing to you right now. Don't try to do 10 things this week. If you're listening to this show and you're like, oh, I'm inspired, I gotta fix my nutrition and training, I'm gonna do 10 things tomorrow. Just pick one thing, whether it's lifting weights or having protein for breakfast. Honestly, that is a simple thing. Adding protein to your breakfast, adding some fiber to your lunch, that will go a long way toward you'll feel better. You'll start to so consistency is just these small process oriented things that give you wins, that motivate you to do more, and it spirals and spirals. That's really it. Now, that initial momentum is hard to come by. Like you said, sometimes you may need a coach. You may need a community. You may need Wendy in your ear every week or as often as your episodes come out to be like, okay, that's a kick in the pants I needed to get going. And now take the action. Don't just binge the content. Take the action. So yeah, consistency can come from so many forms.
And take the action. Just take a baby step. Just try a little, try a little different. Just, like the biggest sort of reset for me with this intermittent fasting was with the fasting window closed right after dinner. And for the last 3 years, I have been binge eating at night. So when that fasting window closed at 6 o'clock, I no longer can snack because the snacking hour was around 9 o'clock, that you magically find yourself going to a convenience store and buying a bag of Smart Food or buying a big chocolate bar or buying a quart of ice cream or Haagen-Dazs or something delicious. And I thought, oh, okay, tonight I'm going to watch the debate while I munch on my Smart Food, which I didn't. Of course, I gave an example. Many people watched the debate last night. And so I just celebrated watching the debate by drinking sparkling water. That was it, so it was fine. And I kept my mind off what I normally would do on the couch.
Can I address two things there that come to mind?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
All right. One, first of all, I love the sparkling water. And there's also something else I recently discovered called cryo brew, which is brewed chocolate. Okay. It's brewed chocolate. So it's got pretty much no calories and no caffeine, and it tastes like chocolate. My God. I mean, there's your late night, indulgence. It won't spike your insulin or anything. It's just great.
Really?
Yeah, it's just brewed.
Well,
it's
I'll
just
have to
brewed
check it.
Chocolate, cryo brew.
Have to check it out. Well,
check it out.
I actually have become a chocolatier, more of a chocolatier than ever, especially, having lived in Europe and worked for Europe for 20 years. I can't eat North American chocolate in general because it's garbage. So the Lindt chocolate, but now I'm going into the Lindt like 90% dark 90%, chocolate,
nice and bitter,
and it's very, very bitter and doesn't spike your insulin either. And then so that bitterness of chocolate, you're tasting the pure chocolate, which is something, a whole new world for me, because I was a Miss Milk chocolate.
Which is what you'll get from the brewed chocolate. Is what you'll get.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So sustainable diet and enjoyment. Now, you mentioned the non-foods are off limits in a sustainable diet, but can you dive deeper into why this is and how people can apply this mindset without feeling guilty?
Yeah, a lot of people misinterpret this as like eat whatever you want, whenever you want, right? Or the phrase intuitive eating, like just listen to your hunger signals. Problem is we are very miswired from years and years and years of access to the environment we have, the food environment we have, which is just so tempting and so full of highly palatable, ultra processed foods. And, it's not your fault. That's what the environment is. That's what you were born into. The thing that is what that leads to, though, is people saying, well, the only way I can conquer this is to restrict certain foods. And diets have been sold on this, whole programs, keto, everything else, even the like veganism and stuff. It's all sold on like cut out a whole swath of food, and therefore you're not going to eat those foods and you're going to be fine. But what does it lead to? It leads to getting back to those foods eventually via binging, via overconsumption. That is what we see. You might lose weight on keto, but you're going to probably binge back when you want that bread one day or the pasta. How about instead we give ourselves a boundary, whether the boundary is a feeding window, a schedule for our foods, even if it's not like a window, it could just be a schedule, calorie and macro targets, whatever it is that works for you, protein targets, and then just eat whatever the heck you want that satisfies that thing, and you won't restrict yourself and feel like you're restricting yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to crave things, right? You know this. You're going to crave the chocolate or the sweets, and you could do things like control your food environment at home, not have food in the house, all of that. There's all sorts of strategies we talk about, but basically the step one is having a sustainable way to eat that you don't feel deprived, and that'll make you successful.
And also not to feel guilty about it either, because we're absolutely, creatures of habit. But I have a dog, and every now and then when you're walking the dog, your dog is eating some grass. And someone said to me, I don't know, a while ago, oh, your dog is eating grass because it's missing that nutrient in its diet. Guess what? We have the same problem. So what I recently discovered as sort of an aha moment, when we crave chocolate. Now, I don't crave chocolate as much recently, but women who are in their menstrual cycles really crave chocolate just before they're getting their period. And as it turns out, you probably have a magnesium deficiency. And that if you take magnesium every day, that craving for chocolate will go down, because there's a deficiency in your nutrition. So looking at nutritional foods, once again, if your diet is made up of highly processed foods, you're not getting any nutrition. And then therefore you're going to be having all sorts of signals yelling at you at the middle of the night to go out to the convenience store and buy a bag of chips because you don't have enough salt in your body, or you're dehydrated, so you're going to eat something that's extra salty, or in this case with chocolate, magnesium. And so it's a really, really interesting, like my mind is as I think I have a scientific mind anyway, as it turns out, but who knew? So let's go back to the Olympic theme and coaching high performing professionals. So as a coach for high performing professionals, what unique challenges do you see in this group, and how do you help them navigate fitness and nutrition while managing their demanding lifestyle?
Yeah, this is the majority of people that I work with, and I myself probably fall into this category. These people don't have much time. Okay, and by professionals, I literally mean anybody with a job, with kids. Typically, they're over, in their 40s and 50s. They've got a lot of obligations. Maybe they're an entrepreneur, whatever, a mom, woman going through postmenopause, and they just don't have time. They're stressed. They don't have a lot of recovery capacity because they're a little bit older. And then they usually have a bunch of commitments, like travel commitments, social commitments. So we have to kind of attack where the issue is for that person. For time management, it usually comes down to shorter workout sessions in the gym, or a little more intensity, using meal prepping on the weekend so that you save time during the week, right? Simple things like that, but a lot of people aren't doing them. They wait till the day of, and then the day gets lost from them. They don't eat the right things because they didn't think ahead. They didn't plan ahead. Or they go to the gym and it's like an hour and a half because they didn't plan ahead.
Yeah, we all have to put on our teacher hat, and a teacher prepares a lesson. They prepare ahead of time of what they want to do, but it's also you're teaching yourself a new habit. And one of the terminologies in the bariatric community that I learned early on is called a habit anchor. So in order to create a new habit, you have to anchor it to already existing habit. So a habit anchor for me in the morning would be I just got up, I had a shower, and then that is my habit. And then the habit that what I'm going to anchor onto that habit is taking my pills in the morning. So that I've created this new habit with the already existing habit anchor. So by finding something that you do specifically every day, all the time, that's your habit, already existing habit. And if you want to add a new habit, anchor it to that, so that one, two, it goes right after it to help with creating this new habit. Because basically, like having a dog, dogs like routines. And they have this incredible built-in clock that they know, oh, now it's time to go for a walk, or now it's time to have dinner, or now it's time to have lunch. You know, and in the research that I've done over the last year or so, the interesting thing is going back to babies, comparing, like looking at how babies don't do weight training. Babies start crying when they're hungry. How do they know they're hungry? Because we have lost the ability to know when we're actually hungry. And all of these, when you look at a baby and all the things that they know habitually how to do, it's just built into their DNA, into their system of being a baby. And so that I found so interesting, because we just have lost that completely over, 20, 30, 40 years of living and as a human being, that we're not in touch with our, like, when we talk technical sciencey terms, like your ghrelin and your
leptin.
Your leptin. Yeah. So those are new words for me. Like, this is a whole new world for me. So all this, all of these scientific words, knowing when you're hungry or knowing when you need to stop eating. You don't stop eating when you're so full that you have to lay on the couch and go and sleep for 3 hours. That's that sort of thing. So,
Yeah. I just, to add to that, I had Dr. Stefan Guillenet on the show recently, and he's an obesity researcher, and he talks about the brain-related genes that we have that, to your baby example, like the baby knows that, and that brain continues to develop, but in the environment we have, and what's happening is all the highly processed foods available to us, the brain is taking advantage of that, as the brain is going to do. And that's why we overconsume, because it wants that energy, and we're sort of tricking ourselves, right, by having this highly processed food. And we have to unwire that later on. And so hunger cues are very hard to understand for us until we retrain them through mindfulness, through eating more nutritious foods that satisfy us. Yeah,
it's really, really true. And it's the key is to not eat garbage. If you're going to eat garbage, the garbage doesn't know how to be processed in your food, in your body, and that these food items that are highly what's the word? Created in a laboratory. I can't find the wording right now, but you know what I mean.
Or
whatever, they're made and designed.
Yeah.
They're made and designed to make you want to eat more of them.
Yep.
You cannot just eat one Dorito. You have to eat the entire bag. And that's the way they are designed, so that you keep on buying them. Like intermittent fasting, not many people know about it. It's like a shh community. Why? Because the whole point is not to eat food. Well, guess what? Nobody makes any money off not eating food, right? If you think about
that goes for all food like that. Like protein is the most expensive, but has the lowest profit margin. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I would take it one step further for listeners, just because I do agree you don't want to eat a lot of that stuff. However, people struggle to not eat stuff if you just tell them not to eat, right? And so I like additive nutrition is the phrase, where you're adding things in and it eventually starts to crowd those out. If you add in the protein, if you add in the fiber, you add in the lean, meats and dairy and everything else you need, you're going to find very little room for the other stuff. You just will, and you'll feel great. You put it
perfectly. That's why it's so great to interview other people in my podcast, because you sometimes you take the words right out of my mouth. Like, why would you choose to go to KFC when you can have a porterhouse steak? It's just, it's like, makes sense, right? If you can afford a porterhouse steak, that's another story. But choosing quality over quantity is also a really good practice. So I think we're coming down to the last part of this episode, Philip, and I think it's amazing. Can you tell us a bit about your website and your podcast?
Sure. Yeah. Wits and Weights. It's all about being skeptical of the fitness industry because it's full of misinformation. And we talk about fat loss, building muscle, body composition, mainly for people who want to get stronger, build muscle, have aesthetic goals, but it also ties into mental health and resilience and longevity. It's all related. So check out the Wits and Weights podcast, and then witsandweights.com. You'll find also a bunch of free guides there. In fact, Wendy, we can include a link, witsandweights.com/free. There's a bunch of guides in there folks can download if they want.
Yeah, I'll add it to the podcast description for sure. I've been researching how to do all of this properly and try and do is make it easy for everybody to find the links and whatnot. So I'll put in the links to your podcast and put in the links to your website as well. And I think this has been amazing. I think that it's like, it's not just one journey. It's many. Like, again, I've had many horn teachers in my life. I take a little sprinkle of this and a little sprinkle of that, and you put it together, and that's me, Finding Wendy. And that's why it's really good to be open to new ideas and new approaches, and why not talk about fitness, and why not talk about going and building your muscle mass, especially within the senior citizen community, and especially within the bariatric community, or anybody that's overweight. Actually, they have abused their body for so long with carrying around so much weight. Mm-hmm. And like a curvature in my back is like that. I want to be able to stand straight, and I can't stand straight. I'm curved over. And how do I find a way to get standing straight again? Those sort of things, those sort of questions come to mind.
Yeah, I agree. My own mom, we were on a family vacation last year, and she came over to me privately, and she's okay with me sharing this story. She came over to me privately. She's like, it's gotten to the point where I have trouble getting off the couch now. Like, I have trouble getting off the couch. And I said, let's try this. Let's sit to a chair and stand back up. Just literally a partial squat. Just do that 10 times. She did it. She was like, oh, my quads are burning. I said, exactly. I want you to do that 3 times a day.
She said quads?
Yeah, she said quad. She does. She knows. I'm her son.
She knows
right?
the lingo.
She's my mom. And so she did that. She followed it. She's the type of person that, like my clients who are, they're kind of perfectionists. Like, they'll do what you tell them almost to a fault. You got to be careful to like rein them back. And she did it for the next few weeks, and it only took a few weeks. And she was like getting off the couch, not having pain. Her knees were no longer hurting. And then that inspired her to then go to the gym and lift a little bit heavier with dumbbells and eventually barbells, because she saw that it actually worked. So yeah, it's empowering, and everybody should find the thing that works for you. Start small, baby steps. Reach out to me if you have questions about how to do it, and I'm happy to help.
Sounds great. I think it's been great. It's been a great meeting, and I'm just going to hit the stop record button, but if you could just hang on for a minute, and then, but anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Philip, and it's been amazing. And I hope that my listeners really have been inspired and will just at least listen to your podcast, because the podcast world is just mind-blowing how much information is out there. And I think it's really unique that you have done both intermittent fasting, that you did it for 10 years, and then you're also doing on a different journey, which is fine. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's not one way fits all, right? It's just, you got to find your journey, right?
That's it. Yeah, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it.
Okay, thanks.